recorded for those people that wanted to attend this but weren't able to make this time. But you'll also see that you'll be sent a link to the recording after the webinar today, and that way you'll be able to play back any links that we put in there, any comments, but you can play it back, pause it, and so forth. So, as I say, officially just like to welcome you to this webinar. If you find that during the webinar that there's any audio problems, if you find suddenly everything goes quiet, you may well have been kicked out of the webinar. It all depends on the connection status that you've got, and up in the top right hand corner actually you might see there's a green bar that will tell you how good your connection is. If you do find that you're kicked out for any reason, just pop back into the room, we'll still be here, and as I say, you'll get the link for the recording. If for any reason any of the presenters get kicked out, well, just bear with us for about a minute or so. It takes about 30 to 60 seconds for us to pop back in. So just stay where you are and we will pop back in if anything happens. We are very fortunate today to be joined by Alun Rogers from Risual. He's the director of Risual, and I'm just going to ask Alan just to say hi so we can check his microphone. So Alan, if you can hear me.
Hello, hope you can all hear me well.
Hi Alan, yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. That's brilliant, thank you Alan. I'm going to come back to you in a second, but just before I ask Alan to start the sort of input and the conversation we're going to have, just going to explain the process that we've put together. So there's a lovely picture. Okay, thank you Reese, we'll come back to that in a second with Alan's microphone. So the process that we've got for these webinars, as I say, if you've attended this, bear with me, but if you've not been to one of these before, we've split these into 3 stages, and the first stage is to be able to listen to the story and the experience of an expert. So today, as I say, we're very lucky to be joined by Alun Rogers from Risual, and we're going to have a conversation with Alan in a minute to get his view as an employer, so that employer's perspective, and Alan's very kindly offered his time to come here today and share those comments with us. Once we've completed the webinar, we'll then have a series of activities and resources that we've put together to help you apply this within your organisation. So if there's something here that sparked your interest where you say, hey, that's a great idea, or actually that's a good starter for 10, but I think I can do something else with this, we've put together some activities and resources to help you apply some of this back into your own organisation. And I'll talk you through those at the end of the webinar. All of that's available to you at no charge, and what we'd ask you to do is, if you find something that's useful, either through the webinar or through the resources, activities, or the Learning Futures site, we'd ask you if you could very kindly share your experience. So you can blog, or you can use a useful resources section. I'll show you that a little bit later, where you can share and join the community of practice that's building through Learning Futures. So that's the process that we've put together. Nobody's going to come and chase you, but we'd encourage you to join that community of practice. You may well be aware as well that this is one of a number of CPD modules that we've put together. Many of those have been delivered now, so the recording is available, but there are a few more that are still yet to be delivered, and the next one is going to be instructional design on Thursday. So if you've not already put your name down for that one and like to attend, then by all means back onto Learning Futures site and just register for that one. So the agenda for today is that we're going to have a conversation with Alan in a second. We will make sure we've got some time for questions and answers. We'll take those as we go throughout. If you do have a question, by all means put that in the chat area. Very helpful that we can identify if it's a question if you start with a capital letter Q, just to let us know it's a question. But don't worry if you forget that, we will try and pick up any questions that we can. And as I say, I'm going to run through the supporting resources and CPD activities. So if all that makes sense, we've structured a session with Alan into a number of different steps. So I'm going to just ask Alan, if you can just turn your microphone on again, Alan. There's a drop down arrow at the end of your microphone. If you can just check if your volume on your microphone is turned up.
Yeah, is that any?
Yeah, was that? Oh, I think it's muted again there, Alan. If you can just check that that's still green.
That's it. Yeah, is that any better? Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, very loud for me. Is that okay for everyone else? Yeah, Reese, thank you.
Brilliant.
Lots of people typing. Brilliant, thank you, Alan. That's perfect from my point of view. So what I'm going to ask Alan to start with is just give a little bit of background about his organisation, what you do, and then we're going to, as I say, structure our conversation with the diagram that you can see that's on the screen. So Alan, over to you if you'd like to just share a little bit of information about yourself and your organisation, please.
Yeah, sure. So Risual are an IT business, so we're a professional services organisation. And we provide IT consultancy and managed services for Microsoft technology. So as a business, we've been going about 10 years. We started off as a small business. We're now starting to become a medium-sized business. We've been growing significantly over the last few years. Our business is now well over 120 people. So I guess all those kind of things that lead to this conversation are that we're continually recruiting. We continually need more people to help our business grow. And as our primary source of revenue, it's about selling people and their time because we're a services organisation. So understanding a lot about our raw talent and being able to bring them in at the rate and speed that we need is kind of a core thing for our business. So we've historically recruited a lot of people from industry, but it's something that we need to improve as we've been growing our organisation.
Brilliant, thank you, Alan. And I ought to say as well that Alan very kindly sits on the steering group for the programme as well, so he makes a really valuable contribution to this programme and certainly is a friend of the programme. And in those conversations, one of the things that's come out is that Alan and his organisation have developed an approach with some local post-16 providers that really starts to explore what that relationship is and how to make that relationship work well. And so what I'm going to ask Alan to do now is just to give an overview of where you are at the moment, so what you have in place with regards to working with people in post-16 education. So what are we sort of striving towards?
Yeah, so historically, clearly we're talking about apprenticeships and our role of working with our local providers to do that. We've worked previously with the sector with private training providers for apprenticeships, but kind of as our business is growing, we need to get a better handle on the volume of people. And I think the other thing is that as our business has grown, we've also got the ability now to start to think about using our scale and our size to positive good where we can. And so basically our journey has been that we look to work with a number of FE institutions in our local area. And we kind of had struggled, so the distance between curriculum and what employers really need had been a challenge for us in the past, and that had been kind of a real problem. So we approached our local FE, we approached a number, but we approached our local FE provider, which is Stafford College, so based in the town of Stafford, so the actual Stafford Town College, and we basically, it was really good to work with them, and what we've put in place now is a academy. So we've made some financial investments into the college. We've taken over a number of rooms, a wing in the building. That's now been built and designed as our academy, and then we're building a volume of apprentices through there now into our business. So there's a number of benefits. Obviously we're benefiting the college by providing all those additional learners for them, and obviously we're benefiting ourselves in terms of being able to get a steady stream of talent that we can skill up and train and bring into our business for ourselves. So if I kind of give you the context for us, is that our recruitment bill is in excess of £300,000 a year. So anything we can do to positively impact that is a huge benefit for us.
Brilliant, thank you, Alan. So what we'd like to do is spend a little bit of this conversation just unpicking in some of what's had to happen to get to that situation where you are at the moment, as you say. And you'll be aware that with the Learning Futures programme, we have a number of projects that are commissioned to look at supporting their staff through CPD to develop their competence and confidence in using learning technologies. One of those aspects is looking at how we engage with employers. So you mentioned there about things like curriculum design and curriculum content. So if we can just unpick that a little bit. So what have you had to do with Stafford College to ensure that the content of what's being delivered for people is right for your business?
Yes, we've had to work as a genuine partnership. So we've had to go and engage with head of curriculum for IT. We've then brought them into our business. We worked with a number of the teaching staff and we've basically gone to affect the curriculum significantly so that it meets exactly what we need. So typically we were finding that people were being taught to a much lower level than we needed in the past, and it basically meant we had a lot of work to do to get them to the standard we needed. The college were very open-minded and they were keen, to help us develop. And basically, we work with them in the detail around curriculum. So, worked with Jill and the team, went through our specific needs, went through what how we need it to happen, the kind of skill set they would need, and and again, some of it is around employability skills, so workplace skills. Some of it is around career planning, so that they come into the workplace ready to understand that this is a career, it's not just a job. And then obviously from our perspective, we're able to support them then around the deep technical skills and also help the staff pick up the deep technical skills that we need them to be able to teach the people that they need for us as well. I think the key thing from our perspective is you have to keep coming back to the fact that our recruitment bill is significant, and therefore we're significantly motivated to put effort into a relationship with someone who's able to reciprocate to help us drive that down. So I think it's a common thing that most FE colleges will find employers in this situation where there is significant motivation in the employer's space to work with colleges, because our bills are just huge. 300 grand a year is a lot.
Absolutely, thank you, Alan. And you mentioned about the content and where you've needed to ensure that what's being delivered and the skills that are being developed in people are useful for your business. Has there been anything with regards to adapting how the actual learning is being delivered? So is this a traditional classroom-based delivery, or can you just say a little bit about the actual the style of delivery, the way it's delivered?
Yeah, so there's the traditional day release into the college, which is the physical on-site presence, but we are using kind of all the best of technology, so Skype for Business, what was known as Link, for distance learning, and then again, we've got a really close relationship with the college. So yes, we are using technology and we're exposing technology. We've created content for on-demand learning for our apprentices as well, in collaboration with the college. But then you also do have the nice close working relationship that we wanted, where you'll have college staff in and out of here as well. So it's kind of multi-channel. We're doing kind of all of them. We are using the best of technology. We are taking sessions, recording them, and then repeating those for new learners. And I guess it's all part of the journey. Risual's been doing apprenticeships for 7 years, but this is the first time where we've really been able to work with someone and take it on in detail, and then create all the content with them proactively.
Brilliant, thank you, Alan. And can I ask, if this wasn't in place, what sort of impact would that have for your organisation?
So it's back to the kind of same old. So we have been working with apprentices historically, but it's just incredibly expensive. Our dropout rates aren't necessarily as good as you'd like. And I think the other issue is that from an employer's perspective, if you're not able to work in a strategic way with somebody, then you have to do the kind of the cliche things and just look for higher levels of GCSE and that kind of stuff, which excludes a lot of people in the learning market. Being able to work with the college, we've been able to be a bit more flexible around the kind of grades we can accept. We can work practically with the college to help all the learners make it through the journey, which is better. And from our perspective, we would have had to work with lots and lots of providers, which we did in the past. But again, from our costs, managing lots of multiple relationships, and then the kind of the journey that we have to take the learners on was significantly more difficult.
Brilliant, thanks, Alan. And do all learners end up employed with your organisation?
Yeah, so at the moment we've got a 1-for-1 ratio. So every person who completes the apprenticeship is a full-time employee of the business at the end. So we've been able to create significant employment. I think that's the other thing that something we're particularly proud about is that because we're in IT, then it's a highly skilled industry. Therefore, the wages and salary go to match, and it means that we're able to make a positive impact in our local town in terms of being able to create high quality, high skilled and high salary jobs. So we have a large volume of young people now who are earning good money, quite often more than their parents, working for us, which is really good. So we're making a good positive local impact too.
Fantastic. You've very kindly articulated some of the sort of benefits that make it worthwhile, that make it good business sense for your organisation. From your perspective, Alan, from your experience, what would you feel is in it for the college in terms of having this flexible approach with you?
Yeah, so I think, from a college's perspective, and as it's working in Stafford, is that, I think I don't want to sound big-headed, but, we're a significant catch to them. We're helping them be able to offer, as part of their prospectus, we'll be able to offer high-quality apprenticeships with good salaries, which will attract more people. If you're in an area where you're competing with maybe your local school system for school leavers, A-level, that kind of stuff, then being able to have a portfolio of good quality apprenticeships with good salaries. I mean, we pay above the apprentice minimum wage, we pay the adult minimum wage to apprentices. So if you can have those kind of people on your prospectus, then obviously you're able to attract better students, which obviously helps the college. And the other thing is obviously, and I would say this, wouldn't I, but the positive impact having people like us working with the college, the commercial acumen that we bring. We've been able to help the college in many other ways with our industry experience and our network as well, which has obviously benefited them. So generally, from my perspective, and I would say it, wouldn't I, is working with business is normally a good thing. And they normally, if you can find the right businesses, they will normally be able to bring much more than the tactical relationship, a transactional relationship. You can typically get much more out of it. And that's what we're both getting out of our relationship.
Fantastic, thanks, Anne. We're going to pause for questions in a second, but just before we do, you mentioned about the benefit of being able to, in effect, upskill some of the college staff. Could you just tell us a little bit more about that? So what sort of things have happened as a sort of spin-off from that relationship?
Yeah, so that's okay, just reading the comments around sound. Cool, so I think it's okay. So in terms of that, it's just been about helping the staff get much more relevant skills. So I think, without that link to industry, you don't know whether what you're teaching is relevant or to a relevant level of depth, and also whether it's it's current or not. We've been able to help the college significantly move to a curriculum that is much more current. It's much more around modern software, modern practices, and modern skills. And then obviously the teaching staff themselves have had the benefit of being able to learn something a little bit newer and a bit sexier.
Brilliant. And how have those staff sort of got those skills? So have you had to go into the college and do that sort of face-to-face, or have you been able to deliver that remotely?
So it's a bit of both. So we've opened them up to some of the material that we use and some hands-on. So I think, again, I understand the point here is about the exploitation of technology, and we are doing that. Obviously, some of this is also about exploiting relationships between organisations. So there has been some relationship building where we do want to spend time with them physically because we want to build a close relationship. We want the teaching staff to know Risual, and we want Risual to know the teaching staff, which creates a closer link for the candidates, for the apprentices, so the apprentices know that we all know each other and we're working together to support them. But in terms of technology, again, I'm probably underplaying it, but we're a pure play technology business. So we use technology every single day in every single way, really.
Brilliant, thanks, Alan. We're going to pause just for a second to give people an opportunity to put any questions down. So please, if you do have any questions, I can see that Sue's popped one in there that asks you just to say a little bit more about the content of the apprenticeship. So have you had to do anything of adjusting the content or adding to the content to make this really suiting your business needs?
Yeah, I guess from a Risual perspective, obviously we need the kind of the background education that the college provides, but we've also, from our perspective, need to focus on industry certifications. So we are moving all of our technology apprentices through MTA, but then also through MCP, which are Microsoft certifications. And then we're actually raising the bar to get them through what's called Microsoft Certified Administrator and Systems Engineer, which is a pretty high-end qualification. What we find is that if you find young people whose brains are still very much in the learning mode, it's actually quite easy for them to pick it up. And therefore, we've been able to really push that. So I think what I'm saying, Sue, is to answer your question, we've added a lot more content, but it's work-based content. So these are things that they're doing all every day. We moved them into a live production role, and therefore they're learning this type of content on the job, and we're then pushing them through their industry certifications at the same time. So it's kind of complementary to what the college is also teaching them, but we're teaching them much more than foundation. We're teaching them actual practical skills with industry certifications.
Brilliant, thanks, Alan. Just going to give anyone else, if they've got any questions that spring to mind, then please feel free to pop them in there. Just going to give you a couple of seconds just to do that. I can see lots of people are typing at the moment. Okay, brilliant, thanks, Sue. Okay, I can see that lots of people are still typing. Okay, whilst people are just typing there, oh, I can see Reese has got a question there. So Reese has asked a question about were there challenges engaging the senior leadership team?
Actually, no. In fact, they were an absolute breeze to work with. So I don't know if that's because we're particularly lucky in terms of who the SLT are at the college, but that for me was the most positive element of our experience. So, I know it talks about having worked with a number of other colleges previously, and it's kind of, without spoiling the flow, but the issues we've had is that quite often, and with respect to the current audience, we can find that, as is in my sector, we're very focused on our internal workings and jargon, and it's very hard for an outsider to be able to work with you. And we found previously working with other establishments that they have their agenda. We didn't necessarily understand it, and therefore we didn't understand how to phrase or tackle what we wanted to do with them that would actually that we could articulate that would meet their specific needs. Engaging with the SLT where we are now, then that was really good, because they were, the business development director and the vice and the principal both had previously run their own business, so they were very commercial. So when we walked in and said we want to help reduce our recruitment bill, and we want to be able to control the volume and quantity and quality of new recruits, then it was something they instinctively just understood. So for us, it was very easy. But I think that potentially isn't the same everywhere, and I guess that's that's the thing that we need, or I'd imagine lots of the sector need, is people to become more commercially aware, and to a degree, from my perspective, we need to become a tiny bit more education aware, and that's kind of what we learned through the journey.
Brilliant, thanks, Alan. I'm going to move on to a question from Kerry. And Kerry has asked, how involved are you in the reviews of the learner programs?
So in terms of the reviews, so we're currently in process of that now. So we work closely with the college around status and progress of the learners. We're looking to actually put a number of our staff now through the assessor accreditations, so that we can get a better view as well. Like I say, back to our business problem, it's significant. At 300k a year, it's worth us putting a lot of effort into. But we are looking to move some of our staff through the assessor training as well, so they can better support. But at the moment, it's just a close working relationship with the college.
Brilliant, thanks, Alan. Sally's asked a question that she's interested in what else you have had to teach around career planning and work-based skills. Was this previously missed from apprentices?
So I mean, it's all, so I'm not sure if it's the same experience with every college, but in the past, we have been doing apprentices for 7 years. We've had them from a number of places in our local area. We have found that they weren't workplace ready. So, I think potentially is an issue. A widespread issue is that young people don't necessarily have an idea around career plans. They don't necessarily understand about work readiness, commitments to organisations, and again, what the working environment is like. We've done a lot with the college to make sure they understand what that's like for us. It's around setting expectations. I think again, what's different about us is that in terms of an apprenticeship, we're not using an apprenticeship as a method of getting hold of young and cheap labour. We're using it as a method to build our future generation of employees to build a business on, which is a different attitude probably. And that's why we've had to work. That's why we've focused on those things. When we're bringing them in, we're bringing them in with an intention to keep them for the 5-10 year period. So we are trying to set their expectations that this is what comes first, that comes next, etc., etc.
Brilliant. Thanks, Anne. And I think there's a couple of points that are coming out from what you're saying of people can decide themselves of how typical as an employer that your organisation is. Where you mentioned about paying sort of a full wage from day one on the apprenticeship, and also some of the language that you're using and where education fits in there and where a business case is put together. So I think there's a couple of key points that are coming out from what you're saying there. But I'm going to move on to Dawn's question, which was how was the programme adapted to meet your needs but still achieve a recognised qualification for funding?
Yeah, so in terms of with the college on their day release, they're working through their MBQ and their City and Guilds qualifications with the college, but we're then given the industry stuff on top. So you're right, the learners are moving through a lot of content. The stuff they're doing with us is the stuff they do on the job. So we're not necessarily significantly increasing their workload. I think the other thing is, from our perspective, is that a career in IT is is as much a vocation as anything else. So the significant volume of work is just preparing them for what life is going to be like in the future.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Anne. I think Sally's put a comment there that she might be wanting your contact details because she's saying that you sound like a great employer, and I think that for us that work in this field of work, absolutely, you're saying all the things that people would dream of when working with employers. So I'm just going to come back to Dawn that she's added a follow-up question. At a cost of $300,000 a year, she can see the return on investment for your company. How has the approach met the college's return on investment? So you've mentioned, Alan, sort of spin-offs that have happened because of your relationship. Can you say a little bit more about those?
Yeah, so we're supporting them from an IT perspective. So they're getting services from us at either a discounted or non-charge rate, which is helping them. So they're also getting lots of industry input. So lots of our people are involved with lots of their people. So there's a close industry relationship, which is naturally benefiting the college. I mean, this whole section is called line of sight to work. My view is that we need to have as many employers. We want to be in the college as much as they want to be working with us, so that we can be affecting that. Because, say, from us, it's a long-term strategic thing. If we can control the volume of people and the quality of people, then that sorts us out properly. And therefore, we're working with them all the time. So there's significant benefit for the college. Naturally, the college is getting all the learning streams, all the other funding streams they get from having their apprentices in here. And they're also, we've invested in equipment, technology, facilities within the college, which they're able to exploit with other learners as well. So they're not exclusively available to us. I think the other thing is that what's happened now is we've publicised it quite heavily in our local areas. We're now seeing all the local employers asking if they can send people to the Risual Academy, which has really helped as well. So that's also through the publicity and the reputation we're building through the work we're doing. That's actually asking other employers if they can be part of the action, have some of our apprentices too, which is good for everybody.
Brilliant, thanks, Alan. And I think you've mentioned previously as well, and I'm going to ask you a little bit more about the relationship that the college has had with yourself. Have you seen that be replicated with other employers through the college now then?
Yeah, so the college is very, very progressive. And I say, there's a number of commercial people in the leadership team. So they're now spinning off lots of these academies with other employers. So I'm not sure how much of that I can share, but I know they're on about their 8th or 9th now. Where they're engaging deeply with industry and getting industry to sponsor courses, brand courses, and really engage with the college, which is great because a lot of people, they're using us as the example, and they're saying this is the standard. So if you want to work with us, we expect that the people coming out, you're going to do it in volume, and you're going to do it and provide these people with employment afterwards. So again, they've been able to use us as kind of, that's the gold standard. That's what you should be hitting, which is great.
Fantastic. Sounds perfect. I'm going to come to a question by Dan that asks, how many days do the apprentices go to college?
Typically 1 day a week.
Okay, fantastic. And the extent of you mentioned sort of on the job learning and learning that you provide yourselves, are you able to quantify how much that might be per week as well?
So I'm trying to think really. So typically all of our people are studying for a minimum of between 4 and 7 Microsoft exams over a 12-month period. Uh, so in the first 3 months, they're pretty much getting workplace ready, getting used to using the equipment, and fitting into workplace environment. Then they start to ramp up with their qualifications. Um, and as you start to pick up the qualifications, then the effort becomes significant. They're probably doing 8 to 10 hours a week, additional work a week to study for those exams. And they're probably studying in their own time on top. And again, this is back to my workplace readiness thing. Most people know that a job isn't 9 to 5. It's something that you have to commit to. We're instilling that early, so when we give them such a hard exam regime to follow, we're also teaching them that work might follow you home occasionally, and you've got to invest in yourselves. What we want is people who are committed to their own personal investment and their own personal development, so they can reap the benefits of that. We actually put them through our standard HR processes as well. So we've got a 10-point competency process that we use for personal development, and the apprentices all fit into that. So they get appraised and managed in exactly the same way as our normal employees. So again, from the workplace readiness, we don't treat them differently. They get treated exactly the same as any other of our members of staff.
Fantastic. Lots of questions. I'm going to keep firing these questions at you, Alan, if that's okay.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, of course.
Great. So Kerry at Furness College is asking, are they completing qualifications outside the framework to get them better work ready?
Yeah, I think I'll probably just answer that one. That's the Microsoft certifications on top, and that's the stuff they're doing on top. Like I say, from our perspective, we know that getting people to raise the bar high enough to make them want to come work out of work hours, so they're learning and they're self-studying for additional exams is really, it's a really positive thing to do in terms of setting people's mindsets.
Yeah, brilliant. Sally's asked a question: do you produce videos that have become part of the learning program via the college with members of your staff talking about what's it like to work with you?
Yeah, so we have, for the learning content, we do live meetings, record the content, and then people can access those on demand. In terms of video case studies, that kind of stuff, we haven't done that, I don't think, although we have done quite a lot of content, and we're actually starting to broaden our relationship in the college with the creative studies team. So that could possibly be something we do in the future. But no, we haven't at the moment. What we do is we produced a brochure with a number of past apprentices who are now employees as a case study, and just like a 10-12 page brochure. It might actually be 8 pages, I think, as a brochure talking about what it's like to be here, success stories of people who've been here, and then we also attend the open evenings, and we also, when they do their Rad Week, we normally send people in to go and do to go and present as well what it's like to be an employee, or what it's like to be an employer here as well.
Fantastic, thanks, Alan. I'm going to take 2 more questions before we move on. The second to last one will be from Dawn. How do you use technology to assess students in the workplace?
Yeah, so again, a lot of it's on the job stuff. So if they're working on our service desk, then we're able to rank their performance against an employee rather than an apprentice. So we can show them where their progression needs to look like. So we can do the normal metrics around performance of an employee. We use that to show them where they need to progress and what they need to be doing. And then all the usual stuff in terms of communicating with the college, being able to submit our records of work to the college, etc. We also use kind of the normal stuff around exam coaching, and that kind of stuff is all technology in the workplace. I guess from my perspective, feel free to ask more questions, because I'm probably underplaying it, because we're a technology provider. So for me, it's just what we always do. It's just like riding a bike. I'm probably not pointing out enough of the difference, but yeah, we just use technology all the time for everything.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, Alan, that you're coming at this from the point of view that your organisation, knows and is known for using and knowing technology really well, and that's not the case with all employers. So I think that's a really good point. I'm going to take one more question before we move on, and that's from Kerry. Don't know if you can answer this, but do you know how many days, CPD days, that college staff undertake to support in your workplace?
No, it's the first one you've asked me an answer a bit, something I don't know answer. I don't actually know, but I can find out and circle back into here if you like.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. Just, I guess, just to unpick that a little bit, you mentioned you've got some assessor training for your own staff taking place. So, if at the moment, let's say a college provides an assessor, is there a certain amount that they need to know about your organisation to make them effective as an assessor?
So we've worked with the team and brought them on in the building. So they've done kind of a couple of our workshops here, get to know us, get to know our process and structure. So we've done that a number of times with different people. So maybe that answers the question.
Yeah, and I think that's really helpful. So it's not just that people are thrown cold in at deep end and they're expected to know, but there's a familiarisation process so people know your systems and procedures that may affect when they're assessing sort of apprentices, that they might need to know some of that as background information.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, we're taking between 20 and 40 apprentices a year through the college, so it's a deeper level of relationship. So we're always talking to each other, we're always working with each other. So it's not a fire and forget, do it once and then that's it kind of thing. We're always improving, we're always developing, always trying to make it better. And again, there's benefits to both of us. As our business grows, then we would both expect to, we both hope that number would go up, which would benefit both.
Fantastic. And I think that's really, really helpful. Thank you for that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to move us to the last part of the input. So if anyone does have questions, please continue to pop them in there, and we'll make time for any right at the end. But you mentioned, Alan, that you have experience as an organisation of working with a number of providers of post-16 education, and without naming and shaming, I think what would be really helpful for us is to have a feel for these sorts of deal breakers. So times when it's gone wrong, what's made it go wrong, but also the things that you would say. Perhaps if you were giving advice to an organisation to say, look, if you're going to talk to employees, if you're going to make approaches to them, these are things that are really, really critical to get right. So we'd really value your view on that, please.
Yeah, and I guess this point could be taken two ways. So we could be as blamed too much as anybody else, but a lot of employers, we just don't understand the education sector. So when, in terms of the language you use, the agenda, we've only learned recently what the difference between level 2, 3 and 4 might be. An employer wouldn't know what that is. We would only, there's a lot of language and things that you do we just don't get. And I think in terms of, we're talking about, the terms of how an apprenticeship works in terms of the times of year, from one time of year to another, September to September, they're all things we don't necessarily understand. And I guess the other issue that we've had in the past is knowing who to call. So we found a lot of education centres just aren't accessible. You don't know who to get a hold of, and when you're trying to build a relationship, in our instance, we've been in this mode for a number of years. It's only in the last 12 months that we've actually found someone who's got somebody that we can talk to talk our language, to say, right, how this relationship out. So I think from my perspective, having somebody that is employer friendly and making them highly visible and highly accessible to employers is absolutely critical. That's something Stafford College got absolutely right for us. Other establishments haven't. And then the other thing is around the curriculum content, is making sure it's relevant. So in the past we've had apprentices join Risual, and within 6 months they will know more. They've known more than their current than their lecturer. And they've actually been, supporting lecturing and teaching, and by the 9th month they're bored. And we, that clearly isn't valuable. We've had, you then have attendance issues with the apprentices wanting to attend college because they don't find it fulfilling. So those are all problems, and that's why you need to address the curriculum issue, because if we're going to push them really hard in the workplace, we need to make sure that they're still motivated to turn up at college when they need to help the college in terms of funding and all their kind of issues. So again, that's why you have to join the two together. Those have been the big things for us, is the curriculum alignment and having somebody who can speak our language to talk to, who's obvious, accessible and visible.
Fantastic. And I think it's worth pointing out as well, if people have a look on your site, then they're able to see a number of case studies where you're clearly using the talents of your staff to provide services for customers, and I think that's really helpful, of that process of bringing staff along, continuing their development, and then seeing them use their skills for good purpose. So I think that's great. Thank you for that, Alan. just before we close down the session, and say if there are any questions, by all means pop them in there. But Alan, can you share what the future might hold for you with this approach? So is it business as usual? Will you just continue with this approach, or are you looking to grow? Are you looking to expand into other areas with the college? What does the future potentially hold for you?
Yeah, so I guess in terms of our core academy offering, then that's built around our core business. As our business is growing, we've worked with the college to bring a number of apprentices in. So I'll call that a business IT services. So we've developed an IT academy with them, but we've actually taken on another, probably about another 4 apprentices to support other areas of our business. So we've got like a marketing apprentice, a finance apprentice, etc., and work in the business. So we've been able to create additional opportunity, but they're obviously not our primary level of focus. So it's not the kind of area we can go and look into sponsoring and developing. But it has obviously created much more opportunity for the college because on top of the core volume of apprentices we've committed to, then there's all these additional ancillary ones that come in as well.
Fantastic, brilliant, thanks. Just going to round off this session then with any final question. I see that Kerry's put one in there to say, do you pay for the industry certified quals or do your apprentices?
We pay for them. So as a business, in terms of our competitive advantage is the fact that we have highly qualified staff, and that allows us to differentiate from our competitors. So it's a legitimate business expense from our perspective. So yeah, we pay them. We do set them a bar in terms of how many resits we'll allow them to take because that costs us money. So we keep the pressure quite high. But yeah, we pay for them. It's an investment for our business. It's not something you'd expect them to need to take on. Again, someone in the 16 to 18 space isn't necessarily going to be able to make the investment at £90 an exam for 7 exams we make them do.
Fantastic. I can see that there's still people that are typing, and Kerry, thanks for your comments there. First of all, I'd just like to really thank Alan for sharing the sort of experience and model that you've put together with Stafford College. I think that there's some really, really interesting stuff here about how you're working, and I can see that Sue's put a comment there to say that you've shared some insights in the Learning Futures April newsletter, which are really useful and interesting as well. But it's been really, really helpful to be able to hear from an employer's perspective what your experience has been, what's made it work. I think you've mentioned there that as an employer, there's challenges for you as an employer as well. That it's as you say, it's not a one-sided coin to say that FE must change everything to fit in with an employer, but you've got to have a certain approach as an employer as well, and you're clearly demonstrating that. Just going to see there, I can see that Sally slipped in with the final question, so this is going to be our final question, please, Alan. Are you recruiting an
to finish on your point is, and that's part of what I said in the interview that I did with Sue, is that, this is a story that needs to be told not only to the education sector, because there is a lesson for other employers here that, you will likely have in your job, in your local geography, somebody who's prepared to work with you. I mean, in our college, we have any business in the Stafford area that wanted to exploit the college to help them grow, get hold of new talent, get them skilled to what they need, then our local college would do that. And I would imagine the majority of Britain would have a local college who'd be willing to have that relationship. So there is a message that employers need to know that there are people out there to help them. That's one thing that I think is what I said in the interview, which I think is really important. In terms of bringing females in, then yeah, absolutely, Sally, I understand where we're getting with that. We have an issue as an employer in that you can only work with the people who come through the door. So we are still very unfortunate in that the majority of people who apply for the apprenticeship are primarily males. But yeah, we have been successful to get an additional 3 females through this route, which is really good news. And I think in terms of being able to get hold of people early enough in the process, that's significantly better than in our core consulting business, where we have a much lower ratio of females in our technology delivery business. So it is, I can see, the best option we have in terms of addressing the balance, the inequality. But yeah, it's okay, but it's not great. We'd like it to be a lot better. It's probably not even okay, but we'd like it to be a lot better.
Brilliant, thanks, Alan. So, as I say, just on behalf of everyone here, and can I just thank you, Alan, for kindly sharing your time and your experience. I think it's been, as I say, really useful to be able to see an example where you found success in developing a relationship with a provider that's working for you, where you've had some input over the content. You've mentioned about additional spin-off for the provider, but also where you as an organisation have added additional value to what's been delivered as well, so thank you for that. What I'd like to do, everybody, is just walk you through the second two stages of the webinar. So what I'm going to do is just stop sharing these slides for a second and bring you back to the Learning Futures site. So I'm going to share my screen with you. It's just going to take a couple of seconds to load. Okay, so what you should be seeing now is the Learning Futures site about to pop up on the screen. And what I'm going to do is just take us over to the CPD area. So this would be an area that most, if not all of you, will be familiar with, but I'm just going to scroll down to the line of sight to work area. And as I scroll down, you'll see that we've got the expert input webinar there. We are going to start putting the links to the recordings on here. We've been asking people to have the link of the recording. We've listened to some comments from some of our colleagues in the projects, and what we're going to do is pop the links on here and ask people. We're just going to ask them to let us know so we can keep an eye on how many people are using it, in what sort of sectors or what sort of organisations are accessing this as well. The CPD activity I'm going to come back to in a second. We've got that after the webinar. You're going to be able to download it from this location, but I'm going to show you that in a second. What I would like to do is also show you these resources. So if I click on resources, you'll notice that we're using Scoop It, which we've done the hard work hopefully for you. So somebody has had a look online to say, okay, if you're going to spend some time on some additional resources of looking at some useful bits out there, some case studies, some toolkits, some examples, then wait. We've got some really good content that we feel is transferable into different organisations. So by clicking on resources, I'm just scrolling through some of those, you'll see that's what we're referring to in the CPD activity. So I'm going to show you that CPD activity in a second. Just before I come away from the Learning Futures, just to raise awareness that you can go onto the useful resources section, and also as you then you can on there as well, your own comments as well. So if you do find any of this useful, if you use it, try things, adapt, use it as a starter for 10 and develop your own approaches, we'd be delighted that you just share your comments as part of that community of practice. So I'm going to my screen here and just come back into Adobe Connect, and I'm just going to load up that CPD activity so you can see what we've put together for you. Again, that should show in your screen in a couple of seconds. Wonderful. Within all of the CPD modules, these activity sheets are there not to be done from start to finish. They're there for you to have a look through and identify what you think is going to be most helpful for you. So if I take a couple of examples here, you'll see that activity A looks at taking a strategic view. And there's a resource there that we'd recognise or recommend that you have a look through and perhaps work with some senior leaders and governors to look at 4 key statements within this report and consider where your organisation is to help you identify any priority areas that you might want to work on in engaging employers. I'd also like to raise awareness. You may be aware that one of the projects that's commissioned by Learning Futures is being delivered by Abingdon and Whitney College, and they're having a look at supporting staff understand and supporting learners develop an online profile. So as more and more job opportunities and career progression opportunities go through online networks, then how do young people and how do learners put together an online profile? What does an online profile, a professional profile rather than a social Facebook profile look like? And how do staff then use that to engage with employers, to encourage employers' involvement within the course delivery, and starting to look at, as I say, things like content and that delivery style. So keep an eye out for the project blogs and also the outputs that are coming out from the Abingdon and Whitney College project. And another couple of examples in here. As I scroll down, you'll see, oh, just gone a bit far there. Let me just get that back. There we go. So Activity E is a toolkit for managing employer activities well. And again, there's some really useful bits in there. And what we'd encourage you to do is to dip into that toolkit, have a look at where your organisation fits with some of the check sheets that are in there, but then start to consider what the projects within Learning Futures are focusing on, and also the CPD activities, and start to identify how you might be able to bring those together. So, for example, things like assistive technology, gamification, online badging, how you might start to look at how you use those to engage with employers, as I say, in both the content but also the delivery methodology that you're using. So the activities are there, dip into them as you feel necessary, and we hope that you find that useful. So I'm just going to come back to our slides. Okay. Any second. Okay. So I hope that you found the webinar useful. As I say, just a final thanks to Alan for sharing his approach and being really open and honest, and sort of we haven't filtered any questions out, and Alan took them all and answered them very clearly and accurately, so thank you for that, Alan. That's been really helpful. I can see lots of positive comments coming from people in the chat area to say thank you. If you do have any further questions following this webinar, then please feel free to use the Learning Futures site. You'll be able to post any questions on there and we can come back to you. I would encourage you to have a look at the Risual site. There's some fantastic work going on there, and you can see what the organisation is doing, and also get that bigger picture view of why are we looking at staff development and what does staff development do for an organisation, and some of the things, keywords that Alan was saying there about the language that we use, how we're flexible in how we put that offer together, but also some of the characteristics of his organisation that make it work. So things like paying a full wage from day one is something that stands Alan's organisation perhaps different than several others. Thank you for your time today. I hope you found that useful. If you have an interest in instructional design, then we have a webinar on Thursday. But otherwise, I would just like to say thank you very much to Alan, and thank you for everybody for attending. Thanks very much, everyone.